welcome to Forum Views, your local magazine show from Cavan TV. And this magazine show goes through the news of the week from the Anglo Celt, Irish Times and Irish Independent. This week I am without my lovely co-host Sheila, but hopefully she'll be back next week. And on this week's show we have Finian McNamara joining us, who's been on the show once before. Finian, so welcome back. Thanks for coming back.
Thank you.
And we're going to be going through some of the articles. And remember, folks, if you want to come on Cavan TV and join the likes of Finian here and talk about the hot topics of the week, then contact us on drumlinmedia@gmail.com or check us out on cavantv.com. So, Finian, for those folks who didn't tune into last time's show you were here, do you want to just give a little introduction? Who are you?
My name is Finian McNamara. I am a Cavan man, born and bred, and raised just outside Cavan on the Balnya Road.
Mm-hmm.
And I suppose I would mostly be associated with the Fairgreen Community Garden here in Cavan Town, just a few hundred metres away from where we currently sit.
Very good. And you want to give a little bit of a plug there for it? If anybody wants to get involved, how do they go up to community gardens? Or when do you practice your gardening skills, etc.?
Well, normally of a Saturday. Although I have to admit now, we it being the dormant season, we have kind of slowed down quite a bit now at this stage. But by all means, well, I can give out if I can give out an email.
Yeah, sure.
You can contact me at finian.mcnamara@gmail.com.
Very good, very good.
For further inquiries.
Lovely, lovely. And that's great. Well, look, we'll start with our stories. Great story to start off with this week, folks. The Stripes are to be on the Late Late Show. So after this show, don't forget to tune into the Late Late Show tonight, if you're tuned in now, to see the Stripes. Straight after Seamus' show, I think we've next. Stripes, not only that, but making a record deal with Elton John's company.
Yeah, that's pretty serious.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Absolutely brilliant.
And I think it's not their first time on the Late Late Show either. You know, those guys are just going from strength to strength.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable. Every couple of months you hear another story about the Stripes, and it's just getting better and better for them. And I'm delighted for them. You know, I mean, they're young lads. They've got it all ahead of them, and best of luck to them. And if they're in any way on board with Elton John and getting direction from him or his people, I get the impression they're in good hands.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, so very good, very good.
Great news for them.
Well, you know what? It all started here. Cavan TV were the first media folk to pick up the Stripes. So and don't forget, folks, as well, the DVD that's going to be on the Late Late Show was constructed, made, designed, etc. The original DVD that put them on the show was constructed, made by Drumlin Media, which is the company behind Cavan TV.
There you go. Yeah. That's Stripes. They owed all the Drumlin Media.
Yeah. We won't forget it. Definitely not. Well, moving on to our next story, another good news story as well, is Cavan Creche scoops national award. And you know something about this. You have a connection to this particular creche?
You could say I have a little bit of a connection, all right. So my girlfriend is a staff member at Little Friends Creche and Montessori, and they won the award for the best private creche in Ireland.
Okay.
Last week, and so there you go. A creche and childcare centre from Cavan Town is the best private.
Where is it located?
It is in Cathedral View, so if you're heading up towards the sports complex, they're in there on the left.
Okay.
So you can't
what
miss them.
Makes it the best? I mean, do they have Wiis and PlayStations for the toddlers?
No, that's for the parents when they call.
To de-stress when they drop them off?
I would have to say it's...
have you been there?
I have, yeah.
Okay.
Not an awful lot now, you know, because I'm not a staff member myself, but I have to say the staff themselves are a really good group of people, good team, and good management there as well, you know. And they have, well, dare I say, in my unqualified opinion, a rather holistic approach, and I think they cover a lot of the aspects that, you know, young children require at that stage of development, or right from baby up to toddler.
You say holistic, are they giving massages and aromatherapy and
I don't know if that might be next year.
Ear candles for the kids.
Yeah, and scented lavender and all that kind of stuff.
Very good.
No, just I like, from the impression I get, like, there, you know, there's a good level of education, of discipline, of fun, of learning, and I don't think they'd. Not only were they, in the top 3 nominated for the award, but to come out on top.
Yeah, it's
it's great. It's great. Like, it's great for them, and it's great for the town. And it's great. I think it's great to see that there's a standard in Cavan that actually is the creme de la creme, and something for
or the crash de la crash. Hey, no, that's
okay.
That's
I'm gonna have to top that now. This hour.
No, it is. It's brilliant, and maybe other crash operators could pay a visit and get some tips and hints about how to run the best crash in Ireland.
I'm sure Teresa would be quite open to spreading the good word.
Brilliant. Yeah. Well, on our next article, it's also good news. Whether you are promoting tourism or wanting to burn politicians, the G8 Summit is about to visit Enniskillen, and it'll attract, I don't know, I mean, it's a tourism boost because they're bringing 8 world leaders and their security. Is that really a tourism boost, or is it with all the protesters that are going to come and burn?
Well, burn Enniskillen to the ground. Like, I mean,
another siege of Enniskillen going on, and
possibly, or a 21st century version of it.
Is this a great it's a great sign, because I mean, the G8 Summit, Buenos Aires, Tokyo, Munich, Seattle, Enniskillen. It's
I dare say it's how do you say, left of centre? I didn't expect to ever hear something like that title there, that G8 Summit in Enniskillen. But at the same time, there's clearly the Lough Resort is of a standard worthy of the leaders, of the 8 top economies or top countries, whatever it happens to be. So I mean, I can't imagine the Chinese leader, the Russian leader, German, British, American. Good God, that's the place to be now for a party now next year.
Well, I suppose when you say the location is left of centre, maybe that'll compensate for all the right of centre leaders who are going to be there.
Yeah, it'll achieve some sort of balance, I'd imagine. Yeah.
But recently there was a fire there. Is that...
I think it was just a little bit of smoke, nothing to worry about,
So, well, I have to give this one to Dave. There's no smoke without fire, I hear in my ear right now. Great. It's true, though. It's true. There was a fire there. And
that's right, yeah. Well, the temperature is rising, Daniel. The temperature is rising.
Welcome to Pun Views on Cavan TV. Okay, look, while we're talking about politicians, we're moving on to our next story. I get €45 a week for this job, says our good mayor, Des Cullen. And I have to state that now, he doesn't go home with €45 in his pocket. He goes home with €45 because he's taxed at a higher bracket, and it's from his council mayoral position.
Right, okay.
If mayoral is a word.
I think it is, yeah.
But, I mean, what's your views on this €45?
Okay, well, he that's not his only form of employment.
No.
I think we need to make that clear.
He's
however,
also principal of the Moyne School.
Okay,
yeah.
And does he have a position as a councillor as well as mayor, possibly?
Yeah, you
well, I think needless to say, in his role as mayor, his net income is €45 a week, which is arguably in anybody's book not a lot of money. But I think that's the headline, that's the sort of the banner that everybody maybe wants to jump on top of. But I think the issue in the article is, the constant criticism of public representatives and their pay.
Yeah.
And I guess this is just one specific point where they're saying, we're not made of money, and being in this position is not made of money. And there's an very interesting few comments there from another councillor, and I have to admit, it kind of rings true to me. If there's so much goddamn money in it, why aren't you all running for office? And I doubt that
comes from Terry Argue, who made the point, but also. As well, Brian McKeown made the point that we've come back from a referendum where the turnout was absolutely a disgrace. If you want to know what people think of Cavan Town Council and councillors, look at the turnout at the local elections. We have to look at the system. So he reckons there's something wrong with the system, as well of the local councils and local politics.
Well, look, there may be something. Maybe I'm misinterpreting that, but I don't know how a national referendum is a reflection on local politics.
Well, drumming up support, I didn't see local councillors, Well, there were the National and the Senate. representatives came out in public, but the local politicians didn't push voting one way or the other. You know, although it would have just been one way because all parties were one way.
True enough.
You know, it's but the statement, I get €45 a week for this job. You know, it's for a man. I mean, he's not starving. You know, I mean, for a man who's, you know, he's been on a cruise in June, July, went to the Man United Wigan match in September. You know, he does have money. You know, so these people are not poor.
If I can defend Des, in all fairness, now the Man United Wigan match, that would be one of the cheaper options. You know, if he was going to see United and Chelsea, that costs money.
Yeah.
You know, but
maybe that's why he didn't go see United Chelsea.
Yeah, probably not.
I'm just a Cavan mayor. I can only go to Wigan.
Look, it's I think it's quite a sensitive subject. It's since we've been in this kind of economic downturn. Everybody's looking at everybody, kind of going, "Hey, you, and what, you know, you could take a cut, I could take a cut, we all could take a cut," and where do you draw the line? There is no line to draw. You know, it just goes on and on and on. So you know, it's one of those things. €45 a week. Yeah, well, what about the full picture? That's only one particular aspect, and I appreciate the fact that that's not a lot of money for, you know, the role of mayor. However, I'm not exactly sure what quantitatively or qualitatively is involved in that role.
Being a mayor.
Yeah, on top of whatever else, you know. I mean, if he's got 1 hour's work a week as mayor, well, €45 an hour is pretty good money.
Yeah.
If he's got 45 hours work a week, well then, I think he should probably give up the role, you know.
Well, maybe he's doing it for the love of being mayor, not the money.
Well, there you go.
Well done, Des.
Fair enough.
Speaking of other politicians who are out of pocket this week, Belturbet councillor fined 1,000 plus costs for pollution. Mr. Seamus Fitzpatrick, we name and blame you. So it's a huge amount of rubbish that was dumped on corporation lands in the Belturbet area by this gentleman, and it has to be highlighted that for a public representative to be dumping his waste on public lands is quite serious.
All right, well, I think you could qualify that slightly in that there was an issue with, I think, a business that had pretty much gone to the wall, and that there was attempts to resurrect the business, and I guess things got, from what I've read, things got a little complicated. Somebody was supposed to take it over. It didn't work out. That somebody was supposed to deal with that rubbish. It didn't work out, and needless to say, it all came back to the councillor, and he was left with the cleanup. You know, now obviously it was his responsibility to start with, and I maybe you can feel a little bit sorry for him.
As it's a responsibility, is that are those reasons or excuses why he didn't follow through his responsibility? I mean, as a councillor, he shouldn't be leaving rubbish long enough for multiple members of the public to be lodging complaints with the council here in Cavan. Yeah. You know, with David Barry, the environment technician, you know, he had to receive complaints for something to be done. A councillor should be on top of that. He should lead by example. You know, and
that's a very good point. Yeah. So I guess you'd say it's a little complicated, but not dramatically so. And well, look, obviously something should have been done about it. But look, he's got what is €1,000 fine. Plus
the cleanup of the pollution. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, so yet again another pollution case where justice is served. You know.
I suppose that's what, like 20 weeks of Des's pay to try and cover that 1,000.
Is that right?
Roughly, give or take. 22 weeks, yeah. But speaking of Belturbet, and in connection with the same councillor, Belturbet toilets closure stinks, says councillors. There's Belturbet councillors with their puns. Business threaten to hold rates over the issue. Very interesting.
Yeah, I don't know.
This is kind of an echo of Cootehill as well. A few weeks ago, that the litter wasn't collected out of, you could say, a local authority demonstration against non-payment of household charges. And also the local businesses threatened to hold rates over the issue.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I mean, not being a businessman and involved in paying rates, I don't know what the story is with withholding rates. I mean, if it's anything like a tenant withholding rent, you just, it's one of those, things you just don't do. You know, you have to, you know, you can do whatever you can lodge a complaint.
Well,
why?
Maybe
Because
we're entering an age where we should question the things that we just don't do.
And that's been honest with you. And we've all been in situations before where we've been like, you know what, the landlord is shafting us, and I'm not paying rent after this. You know, and then you go and you talk to somebody from some sort of legal background, and they go, well, that's quite an extreme measure to take. There are other less, you know, dramatic steps that could be taken before you get that far. If they feel, you know, I mean, if they don't pay the money, then they're withholding rates, you know.
This was money talks, you know, and in the case of...
But okay, money talks, Daniel, but at the same time, that article, it said, I think, the town manager, like, well, money talks, and the lack of money is the reason that these toilets are not open. According to the manager, there is just.
But according to businesses, when you pay your rates, you get something. It's a social contract. You pay your rates, you pay your taxes, you get something in return. Cleaning Coothill's rubbish or toilets in Belturbet, they're not getting something in return. They're essentially being punished. And household charge is no longer an excuse as of next week because we hit the 65% payment, so that's out the window. So any kind of cuts or closures as a result of lack of funding, the local councils have no excuse anymore.
Well, somehow the money's not there, Daniel, so they need to sit down and figure out, well, if indeed, as you say, that's a social contract that should be adhered to, then where's that money gone, you know? And perhaps it's a
bondholders. sorry.
Yeah, well, there you go. And maybe, you know, maybe it's a case that something else got prioritised in place of that, you know.
Yeah.
I dare say it's a messy situation.
It's a messy situation.
You know, and I could use another word that we can't broadcast, you know, to do with your rear end. But look at, I don't know, maybe they could have some sort of, you know, a stewardship.
And speaking of waste, Councillor Seamus Fitzpatrick was also one of the councillors who was talking about putting footpaths down along the road, along the Erin and things like that. Interesting that he's dumping waste in one department, or not cleaning up waste in one department, and complaining about waste not being cleaned in another department. It's
one way of looking at it, all right. Yeah. I'm
just different types of waste.
All of that rubbish could have been buried underneath that footpath. I mean, you know.
Yep. We're on to our next article here, and it's 70 less Gardaí on patrol here in the last 4 years. Now, crime seems to be on the rise. This is a constant issue in particularly Cavan, Leitrim, Monaghan area, that we've had closures of rural Garda stations, particular huge spike in crime in East Cavan, particularly as well, and rural crime against those who are isolated, particularly the elderly. We've had a lot of fake carers coming along. 2 incidences of this in the Baileyborough area, I think. 2 fake carers coming along with fake cards, coming in, pretending to make cups of tea, care for them, and steal everything. But yet, you know, instances are, you know...
There you go. It's shocking, but at the same time, well, there you go. The evolution of theft, you know.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like,
what do you think of the closures? Is this kind of again following on from we pay our taxes, we get cuts, because we're paying the same amount of taxes or more taxes than the past. We're getting less services.
Well, like you said there when you unfortunately coughed in the middle of the word, bondholders.
Bondholders. Yeah.
You know, that's it. Like this is reality. This is you know, the money that's being raised in taxes, whatever percentage of it that has to go to pay the bondholders, is resulting in a lack of funds to pay for public services.
Yeah.
Therefore, those services are being cut. Therefore, the toilets are getting shut down. You know, the streets aren't getting cleaned, and now the rural Garda stations are facing the chop. And you know what? This is going to happen now. You know, this is going to keep going for the next few years. You know, until
we hit Mad Maxville.
Oh well, you know. Mad Merkel, maybe, I don't know, but yeah, I mean I can see this sort of situation carrying on for another few years, definitely. You know.
Okay. Well, I mean, some of the counter arguments are there in the article. That one of the example is that crime, robberies have decreased by quite a percentage. The article was indicating.
Right.
Whereas we have our next article, and you were talking about the evolution of crime there. The next article is this: people are stealing to order Christmas surge. The very next article, which was within 2 or 3 pages of the previous article, says there's a 16% spike in shoplifting.
So basically, and I find this is really interesting, fascinating, if I might say, where you have one article that says there is about a 25% or 25 is there a percentage given?
There is. Where is it? It's
towards the bottom of the article, I think.
Yeah, it's almost a quarter.
Right, almost a quarter percent decrease in burglaries.
Yeah, but an increase of 16%
in shoplifting.
If I might quote Homer Simpson, though, statistics, Kent, can be used by anybody to lie about anything. 95% of people will tell you that. So it's these statistics are all over the place, and
yeah, that well, you know what? Maybe the people committing the burglaries have moved into shoplifting.
Yeah, yeah. There's been an evolution in crime, but this was kind of interesting. The stealing to order Christmas surge. That's like to order. You kind of, is it like a wish list? And you go to your local fella and you go,
yeah, can I have this?
I want a PlayStation, and a guy 2 doors owns a PlayStation. Can you steal that one for me? Is it? I
kind of think, maybe it's like phoning up a Chinese. You've got a menu, all right, and you could I have the number 37, please? Oh yeah, that's 2 iPods and an Xbox. Yeah, and could I have an extra with that? Yeah, could you have like a small bag of shoes or something? But it's just a case of like we said, we have evolution of
crime
of crime,
yeah.
And I dare say it's tongue in cheek, but it's quite smart at the same time. If not a little, when I say a little, I mean appalling. Quite appalling. That you have this type of theft.
Yeah.
But yet again, when people are getting squeezed, let's say black market, the black market opens up, and you get this kind of thing on the increase.
Yeah.
So really, it's no surprise, and especially as the article says, coming up to Christmas,
is it a time when we need more guards instead of, number one, less guards, and number two, guards are too busy filling out paperwork to do anything. Which is the case in most rural Garda stations.
Arguably so. I mean, I know didn't they come up with some sort of scheme there of a texting scheme, the
community
Chamber of Commerce
text alert.
The Chamber of Commerce and the Gardaí. At least, look, that's a positive step. It's good to see the business community and the Gardaí linking together for that.
Mm-hmm.
But how successful or how efficient that's going to be, that's anybody's guess. I mean, you can just hope that they'll be able to keep on top of it from the point of view of the local businesses.
But again, it's reactive instead of proactive. What are you going to text that you've been robbed? It's not going to help really.
Yeah. And sure, they'll turn up 2 hours later. When the goods have already been sold.
When they finish their paperwork. Anyway, on that happy note, we're going to go for an ad break. Hear from some of our sponsors on Cavan TV.
I'm Gavin Duffy, and I'm saying watch cavantv.com. It's a great opportunity to see some great programs, and you can watch it all around the globe via the internet and on many platforms. I watch it myself. Great stuff.
Welcome back to Forum Views, folks. And remember, if you want to come on the show or have any articles discussed on the show, contact us on drumlinmedia@gmail.com or cavantv.com. So we're joined today by our guest, Finian McNamara, and we're going through some of the local and national issues. We've just covered some of the local issues, thanks to the Anglo Celt, and we're moving on to the Irish Times and Irish Independent's contributions to us this week for national. And our first story is something that's dominated, and I mean dominated, the news in the last couple of weeks. It's the death of Savita Halappanavar, and two particular issues came up this week. Her husband has come into the limelight of the media and started confronting the nature of the investigation into her death, and also it's the president has come on board and intervened. So, Finian, it's a very controversial issue. It's a huge issue.
Yeah.
People are on the streets nightly with candles and feel very strongly. Now, both pro and anti-abortion people are on the streets who feel strongly about this issue. And we at Cavan TV would also like to extend our sympathies to the family of Savita Halappanavar and the tragedy that they've had to endure. So, Finian, what do you think?
Well, tragedy is the word, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's such a sad thing to happen, a young woman, a family and her whole life there in front of her. And it would appear to me, because of a system that is too rigid, a woman is now dead, and you can't help but feel something's got to change now, something has got to happen. And I understand her husband has, rejected the offers that have come from the government in terms of a review or tribunal, and it would appear to me, am I right in saying that basically they want a closed investigation into this? Is that right?
Yeah. Well, the first, it seems that there's been a few different stages in this process. The first investigation team was to have 3 investigation team members from the same hospital. Her husband didn't like that idea. It seemed a bit too much of a nepotism or a bit too closed.
An in-house job. Basically. I understand.
So that has been changed, and the 3 have been taken off the team. The second issue is that he doesn't like the idea of the HSE investigating, because it is literally the bosses of the people who, in his eyes, are perpetrators to a crime against his wife. And again, that's on the table but hasn't been decided one way or another. And the third one is that he would require, if it's a HSE, he would require a public investigation so that people are aware of the transparency. That's where it's become political directly, where Enda Kenny has come in and said it will be a private investigation, backed up the fact it's going to be a private investigation with an interim report in the new year sometime. The point is, it's a terrible. It's one where one incident is starting to maybe change society of Ireland, or maybe it's a sea change or a shift.
You wonder, is it as they say, that the butterfly who flaps its wings that causes a hurricane the other side of the world. It would appear to me that, I'm not a medical expert, I'm not a parent, but it would appear to me that whatever systems, I can understand that the medical people probably had their hands tied behind their back, did have their hands tied behind their back. I'm sure they would have performed it
to save a life.
Yeah, to save a life if they could have, without
being fired.
Yeah, without being fired and or imprisoned for breaking the law of the state. Therefore, it would seem logical to me that the law of the state needs to change to account for, this particular instance and any instance that is in any way similar. That any medical professional would be qualified enough to judge. But as for the inquiry, I am not filled with confidence when I hear reports from both HSE and the state about basically keeping it in-house, and it'll all have been edited and worded in such a way as to protect vested interests.
Apparently on that particular point, it may not be able to be edited because there's actual chunks missing from the record of her death. In today's paper, for example, hospital files make no reference to request by Halapanovars for termination. And a family solicitor is quoted as saying, "It's almost as if a whole day is missing from the notes." It's inexcusable, that if someone goes in, the amount of people that are hired in the HSE for administration purposes, record keeping, that entire day is missing in records for a particular case like that. It's just completely unacceptable. Apart from the moral, the record keeping is just, if that's what they're going on to have an investigation, I don't have high hopes for it either.
Yeah, exactly, and neither does her husband. And understandably, he's looking for something that is as impartial as can be, and I cannot see the problem with that. And I can only hope that because this is now an international incident, and that I've heard on Irish radio, representatives from the Indian government commenting on the sorry state that this is, that there will be sufficient pressure on the Irish government and on the HSE to do the right thing, and I think the right thing is doing right by the family, and granting their wishes, and I think it's the least they can do given the tragedy that's happened.
Do you think it's an issue where a piece of outdated religious doctrine that's infected the legality of the state has trumped moral life grounds to preserve life, and the medical vow that all doctors are supposed to take to protect the life of a person? They knew that the child was going to die, but they couldn't actually do anything until the heartbeat had stopped.
So
it's literally like someone is going to fall off a cliff, who's holding on to the leg of somebody else, but you choose not to save them from the edge of the cliff because you might cause the death of the other person. It's terrible. But maybe I'm making a judgment call here. I shouldn't. I should be observing. But
look, at the end of the day, we're going to have our opinions on this, and look at we're obviously coming from a strong Catholic history, and a huge influence on the formation of the state. I'm not going to say if that was right or wrong. It just was. It was what it was at the time, and the state and the people in the state are evolving as time goes by, and that's where I think yes, there will be. I think it might take. It may not happen now. It may happen as a result of any reports that come out of this. It may happen in a generation's time. But I think that sort of that sort of legacy that's been left with state law and state policy is eventually going to change.
Well, at the same time, we could do with some better leadership in the country. We have, for example, a Taoiseach on one side taking a stance on it. Maybe he shouldn't be. Maybe he should be trying to guide both parties through this. We have a president on the other side who's saying, who's taking the moral high ground and said, we need to back her husband. We have the head of the investigation team who's a very highly qualified medical professional, but also head of a pro-abortion group in England. So, the investigation seems to be flawed from the very start. Will there be justice for this family? I doubt it, while Irish legal system is as it is. And as well, James Riley just seems to be... I think we have a small cartoon possibly that kind of... it kind of... gives Savita's husband the public inquiry he demands. He's walking through the HSE inquiry glass, smashing it, completely obsessed with spectacular double, some just not important article about him. And he's walking into, which is our next story, a 300 million hole in the HSE this year. A third of $1 billion, This comes at the same time the pressure grows on the minister as president enters the Savita row. It's the amount of money the HSE is just it's a monster that just seems to be swallowing money,
I agree with that.
And you're not getting quality service in return.
I think to say that I couldn't generalize on that now. I think there's certainly aspects of the medical service that are still that are quality.
But if you want to look at Frontline, right? Take the key case of Savita. If you look at Frontline, she didn't get that service. If you look at administration, there's a day's records of those 3 days missing. She didn't get service. So there's one case, and this is independent of the heart of that issue. The HSE, just taking that case, completely failed from both levels. They say they need administrators. They say they need administration staff. They say they don't cut our frontline staff. Both those particular topic or both those fields in the HSE failed. Is it a monster that's not doing its job, or is it? What do you think?
Well, I definitely think the health service is a monster, all right, and no matter what they happen to call it or rearrange, it would appear that it's whoever seems to go in there to try and sort it out, be it Mary Harney or the current incumbent, they just seem to get chewed up and spat out, and I think that is a reflection of, like you said, the monster. It's just the big behemoth that this is. You just can't stop it, or at least all you can do is chip away at it. But this idea that it can be completely turned around and revolutionised, I'm not so sure that can be done in any short term or even medium term, and people want results now. They want results yesterday. And we've been talking, this has been going on and on for 10 years, maybe more, since the Celtic Tiger,
Since the health boards turned into the HSE.
Is
that, do we need to go back to health boards, or?
Well, you know what, I mean, yeah, exactly. It's got, can you go back to a setup like that,
See, but the successive ministers, as you were saying just there, have attempted to change it, to reform it, and just been completely spat out. Is it an issue where we're going to have to hit reboot? Is it an issue where we have to dissolve the HSE and adopt maybe another country's system, maybe Scandinavian country, if we're very lucky, their system of medical procedures that's streamlined and frontline orientated?
Well, dare I say, there's something like the Croke Park Agreement put a massive spanner in such an endeavour. Basically, whoever comes in next goes, well, I'm sorry guys, you have to abide by these rules that were set out 3, 4, 5 years ago, and I'm sorry, they're not changing, and it's against the law for you to change them, and we'll take it to the European High Court if you try anything, and there you go, you're hamstrung immediately.
But if it's indirectly costing lives, and you say the High Court, the Court of Human Rights, that's another issue there, so
it's a mess. It's been a mess for years, and James Riley doesn't seem to be able to clean it up, and I kind of feel sorry for the guy, because he really went in there with energy, and it just seems like every now and then it's like his armour is just getting a little bit broken off here, and broken off there, and all of a sudden he doesn't look like the strength he was when he first came into power, and I think that's a reflection of the department and of the industry. No matter how good your intentions are or how strong your will is.
Well, I'm not sure. Now, maybe we're not going to dissect the personality of James Riley, but I do think that he smacks a little bit of arrogance. For example, there was a case a few months ago where he brought in the cuts for the disability cuts, and the protesters went on the street, immediately changed it and said, no, it has nothing to do with the protesters, I just changed my mind. It smacks of arrogance. Again, with this, one of the headlines in today's papers was, no, we haven't changed, or yesterday's paper was, no, we haven't changed the investigation team because of Mr. Halapanavar. It's not a U-turn, we just decided it was best practice. It's almost as if they're operating in a bubble, and
I mean, but that's that's your credit that's your take on
to
it.
The pressure that's on them.
The other side of the coin is maybe they sat down and go, well, actually, no, we really should do it this way, not that way. However, yes, I mean, they open themselves up then for to be shot down, basically. And the question is, it's again going back to public office. It's almost like a public representative just cannot get anything wrong. They're not allowed to make mistakes. They're not allowed to get anything wrong, or else they're fired, or they should resign, do the honourable thing and fall on their sword. If you make a mistake in your office or whatever, you'll probably just have a talking to. Worst case scenario, a verbal or written warning. Not saying that that's not the case at public level, but it just does seem that they just can't turn left or right without getting shot at. You know,
James Riley himself is a doctor, and he's a far cry, for example, from the last doctor who was Minister of Health, Noel Brown, who went in, became Minister of Health, and brought it back right out into the homes of the Irish countryside. He brought the medical profession out of clinics and out into out of basically kind of hospitals, institutions, and into kind of home clinics, rural clinics. You know, he had frontline services at heart. It doesn't seem that this particular minister does. It's all about the saving. He can't even save. You know.
He's gone comfortably over budget.
He's the least performing minister in his brief for cuts and savings.
Really, for ministers of health.
Yeah. Oh no, for ministers in
the
this
current,
year, in
right,
current
okay.
situation. It's an embarrassing emergency budget that's needed. Apparently, we're going to have to go for an ad break at the moment. We might leave good Jimmy Riley alone from now on, but we'll be back after this, folks.
Pat Short here. You're watching Cavan TV.
Welcome back to Forum Views on Cavan TV. And remember, folks, if you want to come on the show, like Finian here is, and talk about burning issues, contact us on cavantv.com or check us out on drumlinmedia@gmail.com, or the other way around, you know what I mean. Talking about accountability of politicians brings us neatly onto our next article. A watchdog, and particularly the watchdog is called the Public Accounts Committee, which holds quite a bit of a clout when it comes to looking into people's briefs and stuff like that, not the underpants version of briefs. So Watchdog wants to prevent TDs from setting their own expenses.
Is this an independent body?
It is, yeah, okay. Yeah, they're quite independent. We briefly touched on this in discussion before the show. What do you think on this issue? Do you think the power should be taken away from politicians to set their own expenses? And
I'm trying to
an example I'm thinking of, just before you give your answer, just to give a little bit of feedback, is an independent TD, for example, is considered to be a party, so receives 40,000. I think it's 40,000. It receives 40,000 in leaders' allowance. So if you
mean to say each
person,
independent?
yeah. So if you have 5 parties and 5 independents in the Dáil, each party gets 40,000, and each one of those people is considered to be a party, so gets 40,000.
Right. We should all just go as independents then, huh? I know. Yeah, I'm trying to kind of. When I thought about this, is right. Okay, you know what? There's very few of us know what goes on up in Dublin when it comes to payments, expenses, all these kind of things. But okay, trying to put it in a sense that I can possibly understand, and that's like, okay, let's say you're working in an office or you're working for a company, and you know you're one of a team of maybe 20 people in the business or whatever happens to be. Can you just off your own back, all right, well, say like, okay, I'm working in the accounts section, I think I'll give myself a 10% pay rise. yeah, I'm going to give myself a 10% pay rise, and just go and take that from the company profits. Well, I think, not quite the same thing, a company and government, but I do think you would be told where to go if you decided to give yourself a pay rise. I think it is somebody outside of yourself who decides whether your work ethic, your results demand that you receive a pay rise. So in purely from that perspective, I would say yes, maybe an independent body should determine the amount of pay rise, or whether politicians have earned a pay rise or not. Because the other side of that coin, it does look like, well, let's all just get together and how much money will we give ourselves this year? I'm sure every politician in the Dáil will come back and say that's not how it is. Well, I'm just a regular guy on the ground, and that's how it seems.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Well, I mean, but of course, some of the counter arguments there is that politicians would be the only people possibly qualified to know exactly what expenses they need to be a politician, to conduct their affairs. So another body trying to put that would constrain their ability to service the public and to be a public servant. And
there would be nothing quite like a politician to make that point, and argue that point. I would only, I'd hope that said independent people would be experienced enough to know the difference, really, But that said, yet another complicated issue involving politicians and politics.
Yeah.
That leaves everybody just rolling their eyes up to heaven.
I suppose the thing is, I mean, look, we should look at it as if instead of a hierarchy, it's a loop. That we're at the voters are at the bottom of the table, and you go up to become a councillor, you go up to become a TD, you go up to become a minister, and you're at the top. That frame of thinking has to change, has to become a loop. Then you go up to become a voter, and maybe it should be treated as if your boss is the voters. And that way of thinking seems to be tokenistic, adopted in a kind of a tick the box way, but not actually. Maybe politicians, or maybe there should be an independent body that says, if you're not, a value for money kind of watchdog.
Of course, that says it's all in the determining value.
Yeah. But again, who do you get as the watchdog? I mean, for example, the watchdog who was a regulator in this country certainly didn't do a great job when it came to money.
Yeah.
So
and the bottom line is, it's a question of trust. Can you actually trust people in these positions to honestly do their job?
I think we have some of the recommendations. €9,500 annual allowance paid to members of the Houses of the Oireachtas Commission should be stopped unless there is a substantive body of evidence that supports continued payment. It's just 9,500 just paid, not necessarily for a reason. And it's unvouched expenses as well, I believe, which means you don't necessarily need receipts.
Okay.
An extra 10,000 allowance for committee chairmen with allowance for party whips should also be reviewed. So if you're a chairman of a particular committee, and there are many committees and subcommittees, you get 10,000. I don't know why. Money for ministers to hire secretaries should be reduced. And in one or two cases in the last year, we've seen ministers who have hired family members as secretaries. Review of all expenses, of course, and not paying expenses when Dáil isn't sitting, because we often see that the Dáil do get paid during their holidays in summer, same way teachers would be, but they're paid also their expenses when they're not. But these subcommittees,
when they don't actually have.
Yeah. Well, it'd be like a teacher being paid travel expenses for travelling to school, when in actual fact they're not working or going to school during the summer months, but they still get those expenses. If that happened.
But in all fairness, should like the TDs, do they not get I'm thinking their expenses on holiday for, I don't know, sun cream.
Well, Bertie Ahern certainly got a lot of sun cream expenses when he ran up literally hundreds of thousands in makeup. It was tens of thousands each year, hundreds of thousands in total. We're kind of coming to our last story. It's a quirky story of the night, and it's about demonstration in China. And this house is in the middle of a newly built road in Wenling, Zhejiang province in China. An elderly couple refused to agree to allow their house to be demolished, saying the compensation offered was not enough to cover rebuilding costs. So the Chinese authorities, or local government there, however it works, decided instead of kicking them out, instead of running them over with a tank as they might have done in decades gone by, sure, we'll just build the road around you. The Termacadam just ends in a bubble of a house. Yeah. And might just see that shot again there, Dave. That's okay. It's like it's a roundabout with a house in it.
Well, it's a horrid small garden. That's what I can say.
I mean, they've demolished the houses to either side of it, but the house is still.
That's quite astonishing, really. You know, although if I can compliment the Chinese government, well, at least they went around it and not through it. That's
which is more than we can say for some Irish government and their M3s and heritage sites in Tara, etc., etc. We even had demonstrators there. All it took was 2 elderly Chinese people stop the most populous government in the world, and we have a democratic system. We have protesters out in their dozens.
Makes you wonder. Doesn't it make you wonder? Like,
yeah,
you know.
Really, who's living in a more powerful democracy? So it kind of comes to the end of our stories. And so we're going to talk about what's on in Cavan, and we'll review some of this. There's an art exhibition in the Rammer Theatre, and it's on now until December 20th. And it's Virginia art by Jim McPartin. And if you're interested to go to that, that's pretty good. A fashion show in the Hotel Kilmore, which was on last night, so we won't be going to that unless we invent a time machine.
If viewers want to email in their
if viewers want to give feedback on stuff, why not come on the show and tell us what it was like? I'm sure we can contact Breffni College and get a few photographs and stuff like that. Or let's get someone in from Breffni College. There's a Ceilidh on tonight in Ballyhaise Community Centre.
Great stuff, yeah.
Brilliant. 9:30 tonight. So if you're not watching Stripes on the Late Late...
Oh, it's a tough one. That's a rock and hard place, that now.
And there's a gig on tomorrow in the post office, and we have a little bit of details right here. Green Fla movie, which is coming, and it's Cavan Big Band jamming, Keith Plunkett and Rhino. Saturday 12 to 5 p.m. in the Market Square and Town Hall Street. And it's European Week of Waste Reduction, which is something that you're quite interested in, Finian, isn't it?
Indeed.
Waste reduction. Which is
right.
most important? Reduce, reuse, or recycle?
No, just kidding. Obviously, reduce. See, I'm feigning ignorance there, Daniel.
Don't frighten me, or I'll have you on again.
No. If I could say to the viewers, it would be reduce first, and if you can't reduce, then reuse. And only after you cannot reduce or reuse do you recycle.
So, why are we buying all these recycling centres when we should just be reducing all the packaging and stuff? Maybe we should tax packaging. Do you think?
Do you know what? Sure, why not? We're taxing everything else. Let's just get on board.
Hear that, politicians? It's a new way to earn money. Tax packaging. What else have we got on? There's a charity golf outing in Virginia Golf Club. I've never been. I've often seen it from the bus. It almost looks like one of those kind of rich man's havens or something like that. But anyway, it's a good cause. It's for it's the Rammer in Golf Society is putting it on, and it's for 4 members per team, €25. So do try and get there. There's Pink Week. Oh, it's for breast cancer awareness, and that was on this morning. I keep hitting the ones that are on this morning or yesterday. Sorry, folks. So there's plenty on this week. Is there anything? What are you doing this weekend?
What am I? I'm staying in and saving money for Christmas.
Actually, why are you saving money?
I don't know, I'm not saving money for Christmas at all, actually.
When you could order from those people who are nicking
yeah,
Christmas.
I'm going to phone
Saint
whatever.
Nick.
Steal a PlayStation drive-through thingy.
Good.
Yeah, there you go. That's
cheap Christmases.
I don't know. It might still be too expensive for me now. I really,
Yeah.
I'm quite budget conscious now. You know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. And actually, we must have you on the show again sometime to talk about your personal circumstances.
Oh right, yeah.
Actually, we have a little taster.
The project that hasn't quite.
The project that hasn't taken
yet.
off the ground, but we would be very interested. Cavan TV, Cavan Community Radio, and Cavan Community Forum would be very interested in following your progress in this project, whether it fails or succeeds.
Right.
Do you want to get well?
I'll tell you what, Daniel. We'll keep the viewers.
Well, let's give a little taster. You found yourself unemployed, I take it,
that's
and you've previously done a tenureship in Seed Savers, learning how to be sustainable, save seeds, grow, protect seeds, etc.,
and
etc.
basically to grow organically,
and
and get some organic horticulture skills.
So you're about to put into practice.
Hopefully, fingers crossed, toes crossed, all the rest.
And you, I understand that you've decided that you are unemployed, but you've decided that you're not going to be seeking a job. You're going to put your energies into this project. So you've taken yourself off the live register.
That's correct.
Well done, very good. So you're putting your money where your mouth is, literally.
Well, yes.
And you're not being So what are you hoping to do? What are you aiming to do?
The plan is to use roughly a half acre of family land and live sustainably. I will go as far as to say self-sufficient, but not 100% self-sufficient, because no one is an island. You know, but the idea is I want to provide my own electricity and grow my own food, work on my own water supply, that sort of way. So it will be a large undertaking, but I'm kind of doing it for myself on my own level, my own scale, and it's a challenge that I want to take up. I've been thinking about it for a while, and looking forward to, but hasn't quite got off the ground yet. So hoping that maybe early 2013 we'll be up and running.
And let's take a couple of examples here. You're going to be energy-wise. How are you going to sustain yourself with electricity or whatever?
Right.
Obviously, I take it you're not going to use a gas-powered generator or anything.
No.
Okay. So how might you do that?
The plan is that lighting, at least, will be provided by a photovoltaic panel.
Okay.
So they're the solar panels that provide electricity, not hot water. And the idea then is that we will construct a rocket stove. And if people don't know what rocket stoves are, get in contact with me, or by God, check the internet. There's only 100,000.
YouTube, folks, there's a great few examples of how to do your own rocket stoves, even making them from cans. And do have a look on YouTube.
And very, very efficient method of heating a space and burning not an awful lot of fuel. So it's the rocket stove for heat. Now, in fairness, it will be a transition. So I'll be starting from virtually scratch. So for starters, I will have, I'll have a little 2-ring hob for cooking meals on, until we get the rocket stove up and running, or until I can maybe develop that a little further. Now, water supply, certainly for all but drinking water. I will basically collect rainwater in like a water butt or an ICT.
So if there's anything that you need that members of the public might be able to donate, like a water butt or things like that, can you give them your email address again?
I can indeed. It's finian.mcnamara@gmail.com, and that's FINIAN@gmail.com. And I'm open to anything. You'd be surprised what you can find useful when you're moving in sustainability circles.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. We'll definitely have you on the show again to talk more about that.
Right.
Well, that's all from the show, folks. And remember, if you want to find out more about Cavan TV, check out cavantv.com. If you want to find out what to do this weekend that I haven't covered from this morning or yesterday, check out the events guide in the Anglo Celt back page. And thanks very much. This is your host, Daniel Downey, and chat to you again next week. Bye.